it's always shocking. You know, you get up, you go in, you brush your teeth, and you look in the mirror, and you're like, "When did this happen?"
It's my brother's birthday today, and I'm in my brother's home, and I'm sort of seeing him only every few months now because of the pandemic, and he's he's not 30 and he's not 15 anymore. He's 48.
Oh my God. I've got underwear older than that.
I will tell him you said that. Because
Yes.
he's also a G.I. Joe fan, although not at this level.
Well, at some point he retained his sanity, I suppose. I guess we can take it that way.
He grew up.
I don't know, Mark. I'll definitely repeat this when we've formally started, but I don't know that we've interviewed an artist thus far where their drawing desk is right behind them in view of the camera. What a treat!
Oh, yeah. Well, it's I'm practically surgically attached to the thing. I don't. This is where all my computers and technology live. So, yes, this is a somewhat working studio.
Somewhat.
Let's save all of the great color about the room that you're in, because I'm sure we'll ask about it. Mark, shall we jump in?
Let's do it. Yeah, I'm just overheating a little bit, so I'm thinking I'm going to take off my jump. Give me a second.
So we've met before, Tim. At a
yeah, you and I did a phone interview. I'm writing a G.I. Joe history book. You and I did a phone interview in 2006 or 2008. There's no reason you would remember, but it was great. And you are quoted in chapter 5 of my book, which I'm still writing, but I'm getting much closer. And then if I looked online, I could figure out what year, what convention it was. But you were at the official Joe Con around 2016, 17. And
it's fun.
We chatted a little bit then.
It's funny, as part of the prep for this, I tried to track down some previous interviews and see what I could find. And the main one that I could find relating to G.I. Joe was at Con. And funnily enough, you were saying, I'm just in the middle of doing a commission for this guy, Tim Finn.
Oh.
Oh, right. Geez. Sorry, Rod. I forgot. You also did a really cool commission for me 10 years ago. It was 17 by 22, so like a front cover and a back cover. And the idea was to hit some notes from your run of G.I. Joe, and then also when you came back and did 3 issues later. So it's Flint and Lady J and some Dreadnoks and Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes on a train, because the train refers to 116, 117, 118.
That's the one, that monstrous everything in the kitchen sink one.
And yet there, right. So Mark, I included a wish list of characters. And Rod, interestingly, a good third of it is negative space. It's the sky. And it's a really interesting comparison, because I also had Ron Wagner do a drawing similarly sort of double wide of all of the key characters who showed up in his run. And he has the camera much closer to all the characters, and it's there it is.
Oh wow.
And his is really there's sort of no breathing room. And Ron is a friend, so I'm saying this in a nice way. What a cool commission.
Well,
I was looking to try and find the best run as Rod Whigham commission and found this one. So you win.
Well, I'm a big fan of negative space. I'm a big fan of giving everybody breathing room. I mean, for a hot design, something like this, you would maybe set it looking down the train and have, some bigger figures in the foreground taking a lot of action and everybody in the back. But you end up, it's like you're sitting watching somebody at a basketball game across the court or something. It's like, so this is kind of the Lawrence of Arabia for GI Joe commissions. Good Lord, I must have been out of my mind. Look at that thing.
Thank you again. And Mark, I'm sure you can figure this out, or you have said this when you've had people draw commissions for you. One of the advantages, of course, of having an artist draw something that's like a cover, that's not going to be a cover, is they suddenly gain the top third back, because there's not going to be a logo.
No, and it's always fun. The problem, I didn't do a lot of covers till later in my career, but the problem I always had with covers is that because of the logo and all the space, you sort of almost got forced into having a square compositional area. And I've heard this and I've read it before, but for me, extra pertinent, I hate the square. It's just the most difficult form for a composition. I tend to like widescreen or like tall panels, so that your eye moves across. It creates motion, and that's what this giant thing is here, is putting everything so that your eye will sweep across it and it gives motion to it. But it's always fun. I mean, I do a fair amount of commissions, and it is really nice to have all that space to work with. And also I'm heavily influenced by Japanese art. I don't mean manga, but I mean Japanese printmaking. And I like the way they divide up spaces and composition. And I'm much more likely to want to have a widescreen shot or tall panels, because it creates movement. But yeah, it's fun too, that, you're not, the best thing about commissions is that you're not jumping through somebody's hoops. There's not these certain things that have to be done, and it's kind of liberating.
When I was in art school and we were studying, we were doing a storyboarding lesson, my teacher said, don't compose in squares. A square is the most difficult shape to compose in. Compose in rectangles. Think of TVs and movie theater screens. Those are rectangles, right? Even a TV that's 4x3, that's not 4x4 or 3x3. And I thought, why is this person right? And I started teaching, and I had a big storyboarding unit, and my students would fill a page of their sketchbook with small thumbnail rectangles to sort of knock out shapes for storyboards. And they would, sort of without realizing it, just draw squares. And I would say, no, these have to be rectangles. These can't be squares. And I think a lot of it also has to do with a rectangle. If you're thinking of the rule of thirds, you can emphasize something more to the left or to the right, which is another way of saying, Rod, what you just said about movement across the screen, left to right or right to left. And with a square, you don't have that much. You can't emphasize as much as well, and students end up centering a lot of elements if they're working in squares. And I say to my students, that is a rule you can break after you graduate. Like you can make your Wes Anderson film, or you can compose your comics pages like Frank Quietly after you graduate. But for now, you can't center things. And it's gotten a little harder because with TikTok and vertical video online and on phones, there are A, horizontal rectangles, and B, squares that people are making media for. And so I just end up being this, grumpy old man. Rectangles, horizontal rectangles.
Well, you just have a lot more options. Also, the human eye, I think, kind of sees in widescreen. I mean, your field of focus for scanning, probably, from the good old days when we were running away from something trying to eat us. I mean, naturally the eye scans, and it's easy to be more dynamic that way. I mean, one of the major influences on me is Joe Kubert. I think Joe Kubert's one of the greatest artists comics ever had, certainly as far as composition and layout. And he was always using really interesting, widescreen shots or tall, narrow panels. It's just a much stronger. You have more options that way. You can play with it more, I think. Some years ago, I did a Phantom comic art job for a publisher in Sweden. I mean, I love the Phantom. As a kid, I started out reading comic strips, and the Ghost Who Walks, the Phantom, the guy in the purple suit. And it was somewhat aggravating because I think the publishers sort of thought of everything like a newspaper comic strip, and they were very put off by horizontal pans or narrow vertical panels that also create kind of a timing effect. So it was you're always adapting to what somebody else expects. It's tricky to make a living singing for your supper, I guess.
Now that we've started the interview, okay. Mark, should we back up and start the interview?
Shall I
this has all been
start
great,
properly?
Excuse me?
Yep. So I was going to say, should we get started properly? Before we get started, have you got like a time that you've got to finish by? Because we do love talking, and we typically will talk as long as we're allowed. So
I have zero plans for the day. I got my work done yesterday, and today I'm just kind of and I just love talking about myself, so we can be here all day long.
We love talking. All right, so we'll go until we run out of things to talk about, or until someone gets antsy.
Yeah,
I'll do the intro then. I'll just add myself in for the moment, and I'll add you guys in. So I'll just do a little intro, add in Tim, then bring you in, Rod. Okay.